Chapter 1. Damn it, Logan. Quit your bloody mourning and load the feed. Matt's doing all the work. Logan tossed a look over his shoulder, taking his eyes from the pretty brunette for a moment. Sure thing, Pa, he called before settling his eyes back on her. Duty calls, sa. Natalie. He smirked, completely unaffected by his father's bellowing. No problem, she said, starting to back up and casting an unsure glance at his father. Every time she met Lee Strickland, he was intimidating to her. Half the time he didn't say a word, and she still felt his presence. However, when he did speak, he had this voice that was able to elicit responses from people other than his sons. Logan might not seem affected, but she nearly jumped to his commands. He was an old-time cowboy who raised his sons under the same traditions as he was raised. Although she knew they probably had to deal with an incredible amount of discipline growing up, they sure turned into fine men. Her eyes guided to the oldest brother, just emerging from the warehouse where they kept the feed. Wyatt Strickland was every bit a cowboy like his father. She was sure that she was in love with him. When she was 16, she was with her father when they delivered a load of lumber out to the ranch, and he was working on a fence close to the road. It was a hot day, so he had disposed of his shirt and was bare from the waist up. His horse was tied to a post close by, with his shirt tossed absently on the saddle horn. She even remembered the color. Pale green. The presence of the horse let her know that he rode out to fix the fence and didn't take the truck. It was admirable to her that he did things that way. Most men checked the fences by vehicle. A pleasant surprise. 2. At least she thought they did. Nothing could erase that memory from her mind. He was incredibly tan, muscular, and coated with a layer of perspiration while he concentrated heavily on the task at hand, not even seeming to notice the truck go by. He wore his cream Stetson pulled low over his brow to protect his face from the sun, and the vision was incredibly sexy. Her eyes watched him in the side mirror until he was out of sight. To a young, naive girl at the time, it was an incredible sight, and she never forgot it. Even now, she was remembering that day as if it happened just yesterday, until Logan's voice pulled her back to the present. Tell Missy M. my MMPI I will phone her later, Logan said, giving her a charming grin that worked quite well on the opposite sex when he wanted it to. Yet, Natalie's eyes were drawn to something else past him, but she nodded that she heard him. As he turned to do as his father asked, he saw what drew her attention. He spotted Wyatt coming out of the warehouse with a 55-pound bag of feed on each shoulder. Because he wore a sleeveless tee, shirt H's thick arms were clearly visible as they surrounded each sack, revealing the size of the muscles that he possessed. Inzig, muscles, all earned from hard work. Not once did he break stride or slow down, showing that it was no effort at all to tote such weight, and he had already made half a dozen trips. Logan shook his head. When his brother was around, women did not notice him at all, and he was quite conceited where his looks were concerned. Logan knew he had charm in the looks to back it up, but Wyatt had that hard body, and although he wasn't to Mullis, he had a quiet strength about him that attracted women. Yet he didn't indulge as often as Logan did. Logan wasn't soft and flabby by any means, because he'd worked alongside Wyatt since he was 5, but his older brother, L.R. Wards 3, had a good 45 pounds of muscle on him. He was sure of it. It wasn't that Logan was lazy, it was just that his brother worked like a bloody machine, and Logan needed a social life. As Wyatt turned to go back to the warehouse, Logan fell in step beside him. Natalie Taylor is watching my movie. Wyatt shrugged as he entered the building. She is not my my FNQEM, my YMMB. Logan smiled as Wyatt tossed another 2 bags on his thick shoulders. Inzig. Natalie Taylor was the daughter of the general store owner that also sold bulk feed and lumber. It was the only store like that to serve their community of around 20. 2,000, including the surrounding ranchers and farmers. She was quite pretty but young. He was sure she wasn't even 20 yet, and Wyatt was 27, 2 years his senior. However, if he thought she was a little freer with her affections, like her older cousin, Missy, he would have gone out with her years ago. Still, there was that other thing. She wasn't interested in him. Missy, on the other hand, gave him what he wanted, when he wanted. She was the daughter of a lawyer, and her family was quite well off. She liked to play the deviant child and go against her parents, so Logan snatched her up. She certainly wasn't a virgin when they had sex for the first time, but he definitely wasn't complaining. He picked her up in the bar and rocked his truck for almost 3 straight hours. Ever since then, it had been a routine to get together. He liked her because of what she could do, but he certainly MYMYMP didn't love her, and she definitely wasn't a girl. My OSSD take home to mom. After he packed 2 sacks on his shoulders, mimicking Matt's load, he walked toward the truck following him. Inzig, he could see Natalie sweeping off the porch of the store. Unlike Missy, Natalie was definitely someone you'd take home to mom. Already Memphi knew his mom would adore her. Yet again, she wasn't interested in him, and he doubted very much that he could fall in a pleasant surprise. 4. Love with her. He liked feisty, experienced women. Even Missy didn't bring that affection out of him, and she was more along his expectations experience-wise. She glanced up and smiled at him before she cast one in Matt's direction. Then, quickly resumed her chore. She was shy around Wyatt, but she was nice to him, and he liked that about her. Her hair was really long, and although she had it in a braid down her back, he was sure it reached her bottom. He'd never seen it unbound. Her eyes were a stunning jade green, and when he first met her, he had thought she had contacts. But when he took a closer look, he realized that they were actually her own. Inzig, a man could get lost in large, gorgeous eyes like that, but again, it wasn't him she was interested in. She moved here 4 years ago when her mother died. Apparently, the story was that her parents had divorced, and she stayed with her mother when her father moved back to Martindale, where he was born. Inzig, it took him almost 3 months to get that out of her. Now she talked to him easily, but unlike other women that he spoke to, Natalie showed absolutely no attraction toward him, and it took him some time to figure out why. Wyatt. There was no doubt that Wyatt was attractive to the opposite sex, but he didn't seem to take much notice. It probably had something to do with his responsibilities at the ranch. As it was, their father put most of it on him. Logan was fine with that because he liked to have a bit of a life besides cattle. Problem was, his strong, quiet attitude made him more striking. Inzig, he'd heard it quite often from women when his brother was around. There was another reason why he probably wasn't that interested in a relationship. The last serious relationship he was in was disastrous. Inzig, he was engaged once several years before. L.R. Wards 5. Natalie moved here, but it turned out she was not faithful. Whenever Wyatt went out of town, she indulged herself with other men. Logan was pretty sure that destroyed him for getting involved again after all they had been dating since high school. She was still around town, married to a banker, but he knew that she was still up to her old ways. Rumors carried easily around here. It was obvious now that back then she wanted a man with money and their family didn't have any. Wyatt was trying to save for the big wedding she wanted, along with the engagement ring, but thankfully he had found out about her before he paid for anything. Since then, oil was discovered on their land, and Logan could have laughed in her face when she found out the family was now richer than her now banker husband. She'd even called a few times after that, but Matt didn't acknowledge her or even answer the call. He never let on that he had any harsh feelings over it, but then again, that was Wyatt. The emotions weren't something he advertised openly. Inzig, even though they had money, plenty of it, their father made sure that the two of them never got out of a hard day. Work. If people thought that Wyatt could look hard at times, their father took the cake. He was a large man, something Wyatt inherited in stature, whereas Logan was leaner. In an athletic sense, both of them possessed their father's height, and although the man was in his 70s, he still stood over 6 feet tall. In the past few years, he had slowed down some. Others didn't notice, but his sons did. Oh, he still tried to keep up with them, but to save his pride, they would go out of their way to complete tasks prior to him getting there. He tossed the 2 oat sacks on top of mats in the back of the truck and turned to follow him back to the warehouse. Then he noticed Wyatt glance over at Natalie, who had her back turned while continuing to sweep off the porch of the store. It was very subtle, almost invisible, and Matt didn't even slow his stride. A pleasant surprise. 6, when he did it, but Logan probably knew his brother better than anyone. Inzig, why Matt wouldn't have even spent 1 iota on something that didn't interest him. In my thing he did had a purpose. After his fiancée left him for the banker, Wyatt went back to school because they had the money. Then, Inzig, he spent 4 years getting a degree in business and put it to use. Before, the ranch didn't make money until the oil money came along, but that changed that. He made some wicked investments, and this year the ranch was in the black, no debts. Logan finished high school but didn't carry on his education. He'd learned enough from his father and Wyatt that he figured he could carry on the family tradition. That didn't mean he wasn't smart, he was, but he wanted to be a rancher and nothing else. He had already purchased some land adjoining theirs and wanted to build a house on it. The only problem was that his mother didn't want them to leave home quite yet. Whenever either one of them brought it up, she would slap them with some sort of guilt trip of how their father is getting old and cannot run everything on his own. Wyatt never said much to that effect, but did what he always did, worked hard. Logan had other aspirations. He wanted to branch out and have his own place soon. He was 25 and saved up enough to build the house he wanted on the land he owned. He even had enough money to purchase good breeding stock. Yet he knew that his father and mother would have a problem with it. They knew that he was irresponsible in some ways, and it most likely was warranted, but he worked hard, too. Maybe not as hard as Wyatt, but not many people had the stealth of a well-oiled machine. It was obvious that Wyatt was going to inherit the Strickland ranch when their parents died, and he didn't mind. He just wanted a place to call his own. Somewhere close to his brother, L.R. Ward's 7, his family. YMNW and Matt knew that he had purchased a section off theirs, but their parents did not. Matt wouldn't my FQ to them either. He didn't talk much to begin with, but he certainly didn't betray confidence. Actually, he was hoping to count on Wyatt to help him build the house he wanted there. When the came out with the last few bags, Natalie wasn't on the porch anymore. There were several more vehicles in the yard, so she was probably inside tending to the store. Because it was the only store in the vicinity, it usually became really busy around mid-morning, and she was the only employee. Until the afternoon, when her father arrived to take over. Inzig. Everyone knew that her father was a drinker and didn't show his face until later in the day, so she normally did just about everything. Until then, Inzig, although he didn't seem abusive toward her, and she seemed to genuinely have affection for him, in a way, it was a sad case. He supposed she felt a sense of duty there in looking after things while he slept it off, but she was a prisoner of sorts also. Logan actually liked visiting with her when they went to get supplies. She was sweet, and despite the way she looked, not the least bit conceited. She also didn't flirt with him, and he could be himself around her. It was a first for him with a woman, actually, and he found himself caring about her in a friendship sense, and he didn't have women friends. So that said a lot about her personality. Inzig, she was really likable. Come on, Logan, said, patting his shoulder as he walked by MMM Logan didn't realize that he was standing there looking at the storefront. Pa's going to start bellowing again if we are not ready to go when he comes out. Suit, he added, keeping his long, steady stride. Logan grinned. When doesn't he bellow? Their father wasn't at the truck when they came out with the last 4 sacks. Most likely he was in the store paying his tab. A pleasant surprise. 8. When YMYMP work? Matt answered, with amusement, walking around the side of the truck with Logan behind him. I work, just not like not buying. I need my F play I'm time too. He returned, feeling a little defensive. Play MMMYMMYMMP time with Missy MMYYY. Barnett is going to get YMMY F and Q in trouble. Wyatt suddenly said, turning to him. His tone was no longer amusing. He'd become quite serious. As he centered his dark brown eyes on him, Inzig, that was the first time Wyatt ever voiced an opinion about his love life. How do I and Q know about that? He'd actually never taken Missy out in public and thought it was an undiscovered secret. It was no secret that he was a playboy, but he didn't like to be gossiped about at all. Here is the text to convert. Everyone knows about that. You may be subtle, but a woman like Missy Myost. Jesus, everyone? He couldn't believe that Missy MMMYYYMMYMMP would tell people about their indiscretions. Women did gossip a bit, and he knew a few of his past acquaintances that did, but it never came back to his family before. Yes, he said, opening the door of the truck. It hasn't been going on that long. He said, feeling the need to explain. So what does that tell Moy about that kind of woman? He added with a knowing look. Ask me how they MMYYMMYMMP work. Logan knew exactly what he was referring to. Wyatt had experience with a woman who didn't care about her reputation as long as she got her claws into a man that had status. Does men know? If his mother did find out, more than likely she would tear a strip off of him before he went over and put Missy in her place for disrespecting herself. I don't think so, but it's only MMYMMP a matter of time. Matt answered. That girl has no social graces. He got in the truck ahead of Wyatt, just as their L.R. Wards 9. Father exited the store after paying his bill. It was a shame, really, because she was a fantastic lay MMYYMYY, and he would have to stop seeing Missy MMP now. He certainly MMYMYMP didn't want to deal with what Wyatt went through. Emotionally, there was no damage, but his reputation meant something to him. Further, he would like to get married and settle down with kids. Well, not in the next year, but several years down the road. After he had gotten his house built and his stock established. And what decent girl would date a man like him with a reputation like that? Lee Strickland got in the truck and started it after a brief glance at his sons. He may seem like a hard man with strict rules, but he had made sacrifices to make them into the men they were today. When Wyatt was tossed from a horse at the age of 4, he ached to embrace him and wipe his tears, but instead he put him back in the saddle. Inzig, the next time he got tossed, Wyatt got on by himself. No, tears were shed. It was then that he knew he made the right decision. Both boys grew into solid, honest, trustworthy men. Yet he was worried about the youngest for quite some time now. Logan seemed restless, and his wife had told him that she feared he wanted to leave home. Lee knew that they have to face that someday, and despite how hard he was on his boys, he wanted his family close to him. If he had realized it sooner, he would have bought that section next to his ranch for Logan when it came up for sale, but it sold quickly. Inzig, at least if he left, he would be a short drive away. He loved those two boys more than his own life, but not once did he tell them that. He needed them to be sturdy and hard-working men, and they turned out all right. Not only that, he wasn't an emotional man that gushed his feelings. He was sure they knew how he felt despite how abrupt he was with them, because they respected him and their mother. They had manners and good heads on their shoulders. When the ranch struck it rich several years back, he never, a pleasant surprise, 10, gave them a cent that they didn't earn, and he put this to use by going to college. He and Dolly were extremely proud of that. He didn't want the boy, MMS, to be reliant on an inheritance because money, MMP, doesn't make the man. I ordered some lumber for that branding coral. He said bluntly, Natalie is going to try and deliver it after church tomorrow. You boys get those ranch hands to help you fix those broken posts when we get back. Yes, sir, Logan said respectfully. Tomorrow we will finish it. Lee continued. Wyatt never said anything, but Logan knew he heard his father as clear as day. Then, out of the blue, he did say something. Sending that YMFM mound girl out with a load of lumber is unreasonable. Wyatt said evenly, as if he was discussing the weather. Lee silently agreed with that. She is all Hunter has. E. said, not making excuses but stating a fact. The boy that works the lumber yard only works on weekends and after school. He's 2. YMM2 drive. Her father makes enough money to hire more help. He countered, casting a glance at his father. She should be going to school. She graduated, Logan said. Dumb Matt's brows lifted as he redirected his attention to Logan. Several years ago, Logan continued seeing his older brother's unspoken question. Actually, now that Wyatt mentioned it, Logan could see why he thought she was around 18. She never wore makeup, and her fashion wasn't something a woman of 20 wore. Her clothing usually consisted of shapeless one-piece dresses, unless she was out in the yard. Then she'd slip on a pair of denim overalls. Inzig. Also, her hair was always in some sort of a braid. He bet that if she let it loose around her shoulders, she would look the age she was. Then she should be in college, not looking after her ham. Inja. L. R. Wards. 11. Fisted. Parent. Wyatt added. True. His father agreed, but not all kids have had the privilege that some have. Logan coughed, causing his father to glare at him. I give you discipline, boy. It builds character. A good man. Wyatt chuckled and turned back to the scenery outside the window. Logan always pushed the old man's buttons. I swear to God I didn't whip your hide enough. I should start doing that again. Here is the text to convert. You are too damn old to catch me now, Logan dared say with a wide smile. Inzig, I can still shoot straight, his father added with a sideways warning lacking complete amusement. Inzig, Logan, clamp, his mouth shut. Wyatt just grinned.